Tales of Ugetsu. Ueda Akinari. The Snake's Lust. I don't know when it was, but it was a long time ago. There was a man named Oya no Takesuk who lived in Miwa, Miwazaki, Ki Province. He was a net owner who made a lot of money from fishing, and he had many fishermen. He caught a wide variety of fish, and his family lived a comfortable life. He had 2 boys and 1 girl. The eldest son, Taro, was simple and honest, and worked hard at the family business. The second girl was married off to a man from Yamato and settled in Yamato. The third child was Toyoo. He was a kind-hearted man by nature, and he only liked elegant things, and had no desire to work and earn a living. His father Takesuk was distressed by this, but he also thought that even if he divided his fortune with the boy, he would soon be taken by someone else. On the other hand, if he were adopted into another family and made to inherit there, he would end up hearing unpleasant things, which he felt bad about. However, he should let the boy do what he wanted until he reached adulthood, and if he wanted to be a scholar, he could become a scholar, or if he wanted to be a monk, he could become a monk. As long as the boy was alive, he thought that he would just be a nuisance to Taro, so he did not try to discipline him too harshly. Toyoo studied under Abe Yumamaro, a priest at Shingu. One day at the end of September, the sea had been calm since morning, with not a single wave, and the wind had not calmed, but suddenly clouds appeared in the southeastern sky, and a light rain began to fall. So Toyoo borrowed an umbrella from his teacher and started on his way home, but when he reached the area where the main hall of Osaka Shrine could be seen in the distance, the rain started to get heavier, so he stopped off at a fisherman's house nearby to take shelter. The old man who owned the house came out and said, "Oh, I was wondering who you were, and it turns out you're the young master's subordinate. I'm very sorry that you've come to such a shabby place. I'll lay this out for you, so please sit here," and brushed the dust off a dirty round cushion and offered it to him. Toyoo replied, "I'm only taking shelter for a little while, so it doesn't matter. Please don't worry about it," and sat down and rested. Soon, a beautiful voice was heard from outside the house, and someone came in under the eaves saying, "May I use this space under the eaves for a moment?" Toyoo wondered who it was, and when he turned towards them, he saw a very attractive woman, not yet 20 years old, with both her looks and the shape of her hair, wearing a beautiful Toyamazuri-colored garment, and having a pretty girl of about 14 or 15 who seemed to be a servant carry a package for her. She was soaking wet and looked very troubled, but when her eyes met Toyoo's, she blushed and looked embarrassed. She was so elegant and beautiful that Toyoo's heart was unconsciously stirred. And in his mind, he thought that if such an elegant and beautiful woman lived in this area, there was no way he had not heard of her reputation by now. So this was probably someone from the capital who had made a pilgrimage to Mitsuyama and had come to visit the area, wanting to see the sea. Even so, thinking that it was rather careless of her not to have even a servant with her, he moved slightly to leave his seat and called out, "Please come in here. The rain will probably stop soon." The woman said, "Then please let me stay for a while," and came in. As the house was small, the woman sat next to Toyoo, but from up close she looked even more beautiful. So beautiful that it was as if she were not of this world. Toyoo was so ecstatic that his heart was flying into the air, and he turned to the woman, "Excuse me, but I believe you to be a person of high rank from the capital. Have you been on a pilgrimage to Mitsuyama? Or have you come to Manako for a therapeutic bathing experience? What is it about this bleak, rough coastline that has you so fond of it that you have come here for fun?" However, this is where the old man wrote, "What a pitiful rain that has fallen." At the Sano ferry at Miwazaki there is no house to shelter from. But the sentiment of this poem really is the same as the mood of today, isn't it? This house is shabby, but it belongs to a man who my father looks after. Please feel free to relax and take shelter from the rain. By the way, where exactly are you staying? It would be rude to send you off when you're visiting for the first time, so please take this umbrella with you when you leave." The woman said, "You are truly kind, and I am very happy to hear that. Your kindness will make me dry off my wet clothes in no time. I am not from the capital. I have lived in this neighborhood for a long time. Today is a nice day, so I came to visit Nachi. When it suddenly began to rain, I got scared and, not knowing that you were taking shelter there, I took advantage of this eaves without any consideration. My house is not far from here, and the rain has subsided, so let's go out while we can." As she was about to leave, Toyoo urged her, "Please take this umbrella with you. I'll come later. Let's go up to the shrine sometime during the rainy season. Besides, the rain doesn't seem to be letting up at all. So where do you live?" I will send a messenger to go and get it." The woman replied, "Please go and ask where the house of Manako of Agata is near Shingu. It is nearly dark. I will take you up on your offer, accept your kindness, and borrow this umbrella before I go home." Toyoo watched her leave as she took the umbrella in her hand and borrowed the straw raincoat and hat of the owner of the house and went home. But even after returning home, he could not forget the image of Manako, and he thought about it all night. Finally, just before dawn, he dozed off, and in his dream he saw himself visiting Manako's house. When I went to Manako's house, the gate and the house were very grand, with shutters and deep hanging blinds, giving the impression of a very modest lifestyle. Manako came out to greet me and said, "I have never forgotten your kindness and have been waiting for you to come. Please come in." He led me inside and served me sake, sweets, and other things, and treated me so well that I got very drunk and just thought I had made love to him when dawn broke and I woke up. Thinking how happy I would have been if this had been real, I felt my heart racing and restless, forgot about breakfast, and left the house in a carefree mood. When I arrived in Shingu village, I asked, "Where is Manako's house in the prefecture?" but no one knew where she was. When he was hesitating to ask until late in the day, the girl from the previous day came walking from the east. Toyoo was overjoyed to see her and asked, "Where is your house, young lady?" "I came to ask for my umbrella back." The girl smiled and said, "Welcome. Please bring it over here." She stood in front of him and walked steadily forward, but before she had gone very far, she said, "It's here." When he looked there, he saw a high gate and a large, splendid house. What's more, even the shutters and blinds were lowered and hanging deeply. It was exactly the same as in his dream. Thinking how strange it was, Toyoo entered the gate. The girl ran in first and said, "The person who lent me his umbrella has arrived, so I've come to show you to your place." Then Manako appeared and said, "Where are he? Please introduce him to me." Toyoo said, "There is a man named Abe-sensei here in Shingu, and he is my teacher who has taught me academically for many years. As I happened to be visiting him, I stopped by rudely to ask for his umbrella before leaving. Now that I know where he lives, I will come and see him again some other time," and tried to leave, but Manako forcefully stopped him, saying, "Moroya, you must not let him go. Yesterday we refused you, but you still lent us your umbrella. In return, I will force you to come over today, and she pushed Toyoo's waist and welcomed him into the main room. This room had tatami mats between the wooden floors, and the room's furnishings, such as folding screens and altars, and the paintings on the walls all looked to have a long history, so it was certainly not the residence of someone of low social standing. Just then, Manako appeared and said, "For some reason, we are now a house without staff, so we are unable to offer you the most gracious hospitality. We will only offer you a small serving of simple sake." She then arranged many delicacies from the mountains and the sea in beautiful high and flat bowls, and the young girl Moroya offered a bottle and a cup to serve the sake. Toyoo felt like he was in a dream again and wondered if he would wake up, but this time he realized that it was not a dream but reality, and he couldn't help but feel strange. Before long, when both Toyoo and Manako had become moderately drunk, Manako picked up a cup and offered it to Toyoo. With her face lightly colored with the pink of cherry blossoms, as if the blossoms of blooming cherry trees were reflected in the water's surface, she showed him a fawning expression as if flirting with the gentle spring breeze. In a beautiful and wondrous voice like a nightingale riding the spring breeze and flying from treetop to treetop, she began to say the following: "If I had kept my innermost thoughts to myself, and, as the old song says, had died of love for this reason, I would have been accusing the gods, who knew nothing of my death, of a crime I did not commit. So, although it is embarrassing for a woman like me, I have spoken boldly. Please do not take this as a false rumor born out of a momentary affair. I was originally born in the capital, but my parents died when I was young and I was raised by a wet nurse. Then, by chance, I was taken in as the wife of a subordinate of the provincial governor of this country, a man named Agata no Nanigashi, and we came down to this country together 3 years ago. My husband has not yet finished his term of office. He passed away this spring after falling ill suddenly, leaving me all alone and without anyone to rely on. I have heard rumors that my wet nurse in the capital has become a nun and is on an unspecified journey of training, so my hometown of the capital has become like an unknown foreign country to me. Please have sympathy for my plight. Your kindness when I was sheltering from the rain yesterday made me believe that you are a truly sincere person, and I would like to devote the rest of my life to serving you. If you will not abandon me as a filthy, lowly woman, then with this drink we will begin to make a vow to be together as a long-lasting couple." When Toyoo heard these words, He was overjoyed because this was something he had longed for in his heart, and because this was the person he was devoted to and was obsessed with, almost to the point of going mad. However, when he thought back to his own situation, in which he was still dependent on his parents and had no freedom, he wondered how he should respond to this marriage, which neither his parents nor his brother had given their permission for. Even though he was happy, he was also haunted by fear, and was unable to immediately find a response. Manako, feeling lonely and sad at his lack of response, said, from a foolish woman's heart, "I am truly ashamed that I have spoken such a ridiculous word and cannot now take it back. I find myself all alone in the world, shunned by others, in this pitiful situation, and instead of jumping into the sea to die, I would rather cause your heart trouble. What a sin it would be. What I have just said is in no way a lie, but please think of it as a drunken joke and throw it into the sea." Toyoo said, "I had thought from the beginning that you were someone of some rank from the capital, and it seems my guess was correct. For me, who grew up on a remote beach like this, where whales gather, to hear such kind words from someone like you is like a dream." The reason I did not reply immediately is that I am still being looked after by my parents and older brother, and I have nothing that belongs to me other than my nails, hair, and this body. I have no idea what I should have given you as a betrothal gift in exchange for taking you as my wife, so I can't help but regret that I now have no possessions. But even so, I am grateful that you are aware of this and are willing to endure my poverty in all things. If so, I will do whatever I can to make you my wife and help you. There is a proverb that says that even sages like Confucius stumbled and fell in love, but for the sake of love, I forgot my filial piety to my parents and my own powerlessness, and I, Manako, replied, "I am happy to hear such happy thoughts of yours. From now on, we will live in poverty, but please come and visit me here from time to time as my husband. Here is a sword that was highly valued by my previous husband as an unparalleled treasure. Please wear it at your waist at all times." When she presented it to him, he saw that it was a sword beautifully decorated with gold and silver, an ancient masterpiece that had been forged to an incredible degree. It was so magnificent that Toyoo hesitated for a moment, but he thought it would be bad luck to decline at the beginning of a happy engagement, so he decided to accept it. "Please stay here tonight," Manako repeatedly urged, but Toyoo replied, if I stay out overnight before I've been given permission, my parents will scold me. I'll definitely come up with a good excuse and come back tomorrow night," and left for the night. However, after he returned home and went to bed, he was wide awake and couldn't sleep, and before long dawn had fallen. Taro had gotten up early in the morning to call the fishermen together and put them to work, and when he casually peeked into Toyoo's bedroom through a gap, he saw Toyoo sleeping with a splendid sword shining brightly in the light of the still extinguished lamp next to his pillow. "Oh, that's strange. Where did he get that?" he thought, feeling uneasy and unsure of what was going on, so he opened the door roughly, and the sound woke Toyoo up. He saw his brother standing there and asked, "Did you call for me?" Taro says, "I have a glittering and wonderful thing by my bedside." "What is it?" "Such a fine and expensive thing does not belong in a fisherman's house. If my father found it, he might get really angry." Toyoo replies, "I didn't buy it with my own money. Someone gave it to me yesterday, and I just put it here." Taro then said, "Why would there be anyone around here who would give you such a fine treasure? There is no one like that. I have always thought that buying all kinds of books with complicated kanji written on them was a terrible waste of money, but since father has kept quiet, I have not said anything until now. You are planning to put on that sword and join the Shingu festival procession and parade around with a sense of smug pride. What a crazy thing to do, get over it." However, his voice rose so high that his father, hearing him, called out, "Has that troublesome guy done something? Taro, bring Toyoo here." Taro replied, "I don't know where you bought it, but Toyoo seems to have bought a splendid, shining sword that even a shogun would wear. But what a foolish thing to do. Stand before me and question him properly." "I'm going straight to the shore because the fishermen might be slacking," and left. His mother called Toyoo back and scolded him, "What did you buy such a thing for? The rice, the money, everything in the house belongs to Taro. You don't have a single thing here. I've usually let you do as you please, but if Taro hates you because of this, then you'll have no place in this big world for yourself. You read difficult books and study the teachings of sages, so why can't you understand the reason behind such things?" Toyoo replied, "I didn't really buy it. Someone gave it to me for a very good reason, and my brother noticed and said I bought it." His father, who was nearby, raised his voice and said, What achievement do you have that someone gave you such a fine treasure? It doesn't make sense at all. Come on, tell me the reason here and now. Toyoo replied, I'm too embarrassed to tell you about it here and now. I'll tell you through someone else. His father became angry and said, Who are you going to tell something to that you wouldn't even tell your parents or brother? Taro's wife, his sister-in-law, said from nearby, Well, I know it's a bit presumptuous, but I'll ask about it. Come here, and mediated between the parents and Toyoo, and invited Toyoo into another room. Toyoo stood up behind his sister-in-law and went into the other room. Toyoo said to his sister-in-law, I had decided to consult with my sister-in-law privately and ask for your help, even if my brother had not found out, but she found out before I could do so and scolded me straight away. The truth is that she is the wife of a man of noble birth, and is now widowed and in a helpless position, and she asked me to marry her and help her, and gave it to her as a token of her gratitude. After all, I am still a homebody and not yet independent, and I am sure I will be severely scolded for making a marriage promise without the permission of my parents and brother, so I deeply regret it, even though it is now too late. Please understand my feelings and sympathize with my sister-in-law. Hearing this, his sister-in-law smiled and said, I have always felt sorry for you being single, but isn't it wonderful that you have found such a partner? I may be clumsy, but I will try to explain it to you. That evening she said to her husband, The truth is, this is what happened, but don't you think this is just the right thing to say? Please explain it to your father in a way that suits him. Then Taro frowned and said, That's strange. I have never heard of a certain Agata person serving as a subordinate to the governor of this country. My family is the head of the village, so it's not surprising that we have heard of such a person passing away. Anyway, bring that sword here. So his wife immediately brought it. After Taro had finished looking at it attentively, he let out a deep sigh and spoke, There is something very terrible happening here. Recently, a minister from the capital had a prayer answered, and as a token of gratitude he made an offering of many treasures to Gongan. However, the treasures were suddenly lost in the treasure house, and the Gongan's high priest has complained to the provincial governor about this. The provincial governor has then dispatched his vice minister, Funya no Hiroyuki, to the high priest's residence to arrest the thief, and I have heard that he is currently investigating the thief. However, no matter how you look at it, this sword is not one that would be worn by a low-ranking official. I would like to show it to you, father." He brought it before his father and said, "The truth is that such and such a terrible thing has happened. What should we do?" When his father heard this, he turned pale and said, "This is an unfortunate and cruel thing that has happened. That boy is the kind of person who would never pluck out even a single hair that belongs to another person. So what karma could have caused him to have such evil intentions? If this matter were to be revealed by someone else, the Oya family would suffer the tragic death of its lineage. For the sake of our ancestors and our descendants, it would be a shame to throw away an unfilial child. I will file a complaint tomorrow." Taro waited until dawn and went to the Daiguji's residence and told him the whole story. When he showed him the sword, the Daiguji was surprised and said, "This is definitely the sword that the minister presented to me." Upon hearing this, the vice minister Hiroyuki ordered, "We will also investigate the loss of the sword. Arrest the man." So about 10 samurai set off to arrest him, with Taro at the head of the group. Toyoo, completely unaware of what was going on, was reading a book at home when the samurai burst in and arrested him. "What crime are they arresting me for?" he protested, but the samurai did not listen and tied him up. Seeing this, his parents and Taro and his wife could only lament and cry, not knowing what to do, saying, "This is pathetic." The samurai surrounded Toyoo, telling him, "We've been summoned by the government," and "Hurry up and walk away," and drove him to the provincial governor's office. The vice minister pulled Toyoo to his feet, glared at him, and said, "You've stolen the treasure, which is an unprecedented crime against the national law. And where have you hidden the other treasures? Tell us clearly." Hearing this, Toyoo finally understood the truth of the situation and answered in tears, "I never stole anything. In fact, this and that is why the wife of Agata's so-and-so gave it to me, saying that it was her ex-husband's. Please call the woman here immediately and prove that I am innocent." The vice inspector was even more enraged by these words and said, "Never before has anyone among my subordinates taken the surname of Agata. If you continue to lie, your crime will be even greater." Toyoo said, "How can I continue to lie when I am held captive like this? Please call the woman and ask her." The vice inspector then ordered his warriors, "Where does Agata's woman Manako live? Snatch this man and capture her." The samurai humbly accepted the order, then snatched Toyoo away and headed for Manako's house, but when they got there, the imposing gateposts were now rotting away. Most of the tiles on the eaves had fallen apart, and grass was hanging down from them. It looked like a house where no one lived at all. Toyoo was also completely stunned when he saw this. The samurai ran around, calling for the neighbors. Old woodcutters and rice pounders crouched down there, frightened and flustered. One of the warriors asked the men who lived in this house, "Is it true that the wife of a certain man from the prefecture lives here?" The old blacksmith stepped forward and said, "I have never heard of such a name. Until about 3 years ago, a certain man from Muranushi Saguri lived here in abundance, with many people. But when the ship went down to Kyushu with goods, it disappeared, and after that, the people who remained in the house scattered, and since then, no one has lived here at all. But yesterday, this man entered the house, and after a while he left." The old lacquerer who saw this said that it was strange. "Anyway, let's take a good look inside and report to the Lord," said the warriors, and they pushed open the gate and went inside. The inside of the mansion was even more dilapidated than the outside. We went further inside. The front garden was spaciously planted. The pond had dried up, the water plants had completely withered, and wild plants were growing tall and overgrown, while a large pine tree had been blown down by the wind and was lying there, creating a truly horrifying scene. When we opened the lattice door to the front room, an eerie, fishy wind blew in from inside, and the samurai were frightened and stepped back. Toyoo was so shocked that he couldn't speak and just lamented. Among the samurai was a bold man named Koz Komagashi, who said, "Everyone, follow me," and walked ahead, stomping roughly across the wooden floor. About 3 centimeters of dust had accumulated on the floor. Amidst rat droppings, a woman as beautiful as a flower was sitting alone on an old folding screen. "The governor of the province has summoned you. Come immediately," Kumatori called out to the woman, but she made no attempt to respond. Just as he approached and tried to grab her, a loud thunder rumbled so loud it seemed the earth would split. The warriors had no time to flee, and they all fell to the ground. After a while, they gently raised their heads to see where the woman had gone. Neither her shadow nor her form were to be seen. Looking more closely, he noticed something glittering and magnificent on the floor. The warriors approached fearfully and found Korean brocade, kure silk twill, Japanese woven silk, thread plus laid down fabric, 3rd level 1-90-17, shields, spears, quivers, and hoes, all of which were treasures that had been lost from the Gongan. The warriors took these back home and reported the strange occurrence in detail. The vice minister and the grand priest realized that it was the work of a supernatural creature, and relaxed their investigation of Toyoo. However, Toyoo was still guilty of possessing stolen goods, and was handed over to the provincial governor's office and thrown into prison. Oya and his son sent a large amount of money to try to get Toyoo to avoid his crime, and he was pardoned after about 100 days. At this point, I feel ashamed to show my face to the world. I would like to visit my sister in Yamato and take shelter there for a while, Toyoo said, and his parents replied, "You're right. After experiencing such hardships, it's not uncommon for one to fall ill seriously. Go over there and live at ease for a few months," and sent Toyoo off to Yamato with some attendants. Toyoo's sister had married a merchant named Kanatada of Tanabe in a place called Tsubaichi in Yamato. The Tanabe couple were happy to see Toyoo visit, and sympathizing with the hardships he had suffered over the past few months. They kindly comforted him and said, "Stay here forever." Before long, the year came to an end, and it was February of the following year. This place called Tsubaichi was near Hatsustera Temple. Among the many Buddha statues, this canon of Hatsu's is known as truly miraculous, and its fame has spread as far as China. So in spring many people make pilgrimages here from both the capital and the countryside. Pilgrims always stay overnight in Pomegranate Market, and there are rows of houses offering lodging for travelers. Tanabe's house sold lamp oil, candles, and wicks for lamps, so the store was packed to capacity to the point that it was small. Among them was a very elegant and beautiful woman who appeared to be on a secret pilgrimage from the capital, and who had stopped in to buy incense with a young maid. When the girl saw Toyoo, she said, "Master, you are here." Toyoo was surprised and turned to look, and saw that it was none other than Manako and Moroya. "Oh, how frightening!" Toyoo exclaimed, and hastily ran back inside the house to hide. Kanatada and his wife ask, "What on earth is this?" Toyoo replies, "That monster has followed us all the way here. You mustn't go near those two women," and panicking, he tries desperately to hide, so the other people start making a fuss, asking, "Where is that monster?" At that moment, Manako quietly entered and said, "Everyone, please don't be so surprised. My lord, please don't be so scared. I am sad that my impure heart led me to sin, so I visited you to find you, explain the situation in detail, and hope to reassure you. I am truly pleased that all my efforts have paid off and I can now meet you like this. I hope the master of this house will listen carefully to what I have to say and make his decision. If I were a monster, how could I appear so brazenly in such a crowded place, and on top of that, in the middle of such a peaceful day? Look, there are seams in my clothes. When I face the sun, there is a shadow. Please understand this is the correct way of thinking and put to rest your doubts." Toyoo finally regained his composure and said, "The proof that you are definitely not human is that after I was captured and went to your residence with the samurai, we found that it was in an astonishingly dilapidated state compared to the day before, and that you were alone in a house that was just the perfect home for a monster. And when we tried to capture you, there was suddenly a loud thunderclap in the clear sky and you vanished as if wiped out. I saw it with my own eyes. What are you trying to do by chasing me again? Get out of here immediately." Manako shed tears and said, "It is only natural that you think so, but please listen to what I have to say. When I heard that you had been summoned to the government office, I consulted with an elderly man from the neighboring house, who had always been kind to me and won his side. We then made our house look like a dilapidated house in the fields. Then, just as the samurai were about to capture me, a tremendous sound like thunder rang out. This was Moroya's plot and deception. After that, we boarded a boat and escaped to Osaka, but no one knew how you were doing. Hoping to know how you were doing after that, I made a prayer to the canon of Hatsu's, and my prayers were answered. Thanks to the miraculous power of the 2 cedar trees of Furukawanab, as mentioned in an old song, I have been able to meet you here again with such joy. And it is only thanks to the Buddha's great compassion that I have received his immense blessing. How could a woman like me steal so many treasures? In fact, it was my ex-husband who did it with evil intentions. Please consider this reasoning carefully and understand even a little of the feelings I have for you," she said, and broke down into tears again. Toyoo was now half suspicious, but half feeling pity for Manako, and not knowing what to say, he remained silent, not knowing what to say again. Kanatada and his wife found Manago's words to be logical and reasonable, and seeing her feminine and graceful behavior, they completely cast aside their doubts and said, "From Toyoo's story, we thought it was the most terrifying thing in the world, but we are not in an age where a supernatural monster can appear disguised as a human. We are truly sorry for your inconvenience, having come all the way from far away to visit us. Even if Toyoo does not agree, we will let you stay in our house," and they welcomed Manago into a room at the back of the house. After living in the house for a day or two, Manago clung to the couple, begging them to please her and calm Toyoo's anger, revealing the pathetic feelings of a woman. The couple was touched by the depth of her sincere, passionate feelings and persuaded Toyoo, and finally had the two hold a wedding ceremony. As the days passed, Toyoo's resentment also melted away. Having always loved Manago's beauty, their relationship was delicate and they vowed to stay together forever. But just as the clouds that rose every night over Takamayama in Katsuragi brought rain, but the rain stopped with the bells of Hatsudera Temple announcing the dawn, the relationship between the two, who became clouds and rain and met every night, was so intimate that now he simply wondered why they had not met sooner and regretted that their reunion was so late. The month changed and it was now March. One day, Kanatada said to Toyoo and his wife, "The scenery here cannot be compared to that around the capital, but it is still better than the Kishu Road. The famous Yoshino is a wonderful place in the spring. Mount Mifune and the Natsumi River are beautiful even when you see them every day, and you never tire of looking at them. But how interesting it must be these days when spring is in full swing. Come, get ready. Let's go." Manago smiled and said, "An old song states that Yoshino is a place where good people look carefully and that it is a good place. So people in the capital say it is a pity that they cannot see the beautiful scenery of Yoshino. However, ever since I was a child, I have had a chronic illness that makes me suffer from a fever whenever I go out into crowded places or walk long distances. So, although it would be a great pity, I cannot accompany you on your trip. Please be sure to bring back some souvenirs from the mountains. I look forward to seeing you." Kanatada said, "If you walk, your chronic illness will worsen and it will be painful. Although we don't have an ox cart like the people of the capital, we will do whatever it takes to put you on the vehicle and not let you step on the ground. You don't know how worried Toyoo will be if you stay behind." The couple urged him on, So Toyoo replied, "You have been so kind as to ask me, so even if I become unable to walk along the way, how can I not go?" So, although unwillingly, Manako went out with everyone. Everyone went out dressed up in gorgeous attire, but compared to Manako's refined beauty, they all looked incomparable. A certain temple in Yoshino had long been on friendly terms with Kanatada's family, so they visited it. The monk who was the owner of the temple welcomed the group and said, "You have come later than usual this spring. Half of the cherry blossoms have already fallen, and the nightingales are singing wildly in the late spring, but there is still a nice place, so I will show you there." That night, he served a neat and tidy dinner. We spent the night here, and when we woke up the next morning, the dawn sky was thick with mist, but as it cleared, we could look around and see the temple, which is located on a high place, and the monks' quarters scattered here and there clearly as if they were in the palm of our hands. Various mountain birds were chirping here and there, and the colorful flowers of the trees and grasses were blooming together. Although it was the same mountain village, the freshness and beauty of this place made us feel like we were waking up. For first-time visitors, there will be many things to see in the direction of the waterfall, the guide said, and so we set off, asking a knowledgeable guide to take us in that direction. Our path wound its way around the valley. Eventually, we arrived at the site of the former Yoshino Imperial Villa, where the rapids of the Yoshino River grazed the rocks and made a noise as it flowed. Small young sweet fish in the spring could be seen swimming upstream, creating a dazzling and fascinating sight. We all sat down wherever we liked, opened our lunch boxes, ate our meals, and enjoyed our excursion. A person was coming towards us, following the rocks. He was an old man with messy white hair, like long hemp threads tied into a ball, but with very strong-looking arms and legs. Then, walking near this Miyataki waterfall, he saw the group and looked puzzled, but Manako and Moroya turned their backs to the old man and pretended not to see. The old man looked at the two of them and muttered in a low voice, "You wicked creatures! You evil gods! How dare you deceive people? Do you think you can get away with doing this right in front of me?" Hearing this, Manako and Moroya jumped up and jumped into the torrent, and the water suddenly rose up into the sky, and the two of them disappeared into it. At that moment, black clouds covered the sky like spilled ink, and rain fell hard like bamboo grass. The old man calmed the group's panic and led them down to the village. When they reached a place where people lived, they crouched under the eaves of a shabby hut, trembling with fear. But the old man turned to Toyoo and said, "Looking closely at your face, I see that you are being tormented by this evil god. But if I hadn't saved you, you would have lost your life sooner or later. From now on, be very careful." Toyoo, rubbing his forehead against the ground, recounted the events that had happened up to that point from the beginning, and respectfully begged, "Please help me to save my life from now on too." The old man said, "I thought so. This evil god is an old snake, Orochi. His true nature is lustful, and it is said that when he mates with cows he gives birth to Rinrin, and when he mates with horses he gives birth to dragon horses. It is likely that this evil god possessed you and deceived you because he was attracted by your good looks and allowed his lust to run wild. Since he is so obsessed, he will probably lose his life if he does not exercise sufficient restraint." Everyone was even more frightened and confused, but they once again worshipped the old man, saying, "He must be a sacred living god, transcending the realm of humans," and they all bowed with their hands together. The old man laughed and said, "No, I'm not a god. I'm an old man called Kibito of Tajima, who serves as a priest at Yamato Shrine. As we're familiar with each other, I'll see you off on your way. Come on, let's get going," and walked ahead of the others, and they all followed him back to their house in Zakurochi. The next day, Toyoo went to Yamato Shrine and met with the old man from the previous day, once again thanking him for his hospitality, and as a token of his gratitude he presented him with 3 pieces of Mino silk and 2 tons of Tsukushi cotton, and humbly requested, "Please help me perform further purification rituals to drive away the monsters." After the old man received the gifts, he distributed them among the other priests, and did not take a single piece for himself. Then, turning to Toyoo, he kindly admonished him, saying, "That brute is attracted by your good looks and has clung to you. You too have been bewitched by the beautiful woman in whose shape that brute is, and have lost your manly, firm spirit. From now on, summon up your manly, brave courage and calm your carefree heart. If you do this, you will no longer need this old man's strength to drive away such an evil spirit. You must, without fail, calm your heart." Toyoo now felt refreshed, as if waking from a dream, and returned to Kanatada and his wife, repeating his thanks over and over again. Then, turning to Kanatada, she said, "I was led astray by such things all these years, and now that I think about it, It was because my heart was not right. It was wrong for me to have become a burden to your household without serving my parents or brother. I am truly grateful for your kindness, but I will now leave. I will definitely come again, and after saying this, she returned to her hometown of Kishu. Having heard of the horrible events in Yamato, her parents, and Taro and his wife also realized that Toyoo himself had not made any mistake and felt even more sorry for him. But at the same time they feared the monster's tenacity. It is because he remains single that such misfortune occurs. "Let's get him a wife," said the parents, and they discussed how to find a wife. In the village of Shiba, there was a man named Shiba no Shoji. He had one daughter, and for many years she served as a court lady in the imperial palace in the capital. Now that she has been given a leave of absence and is returning home, she has sent a matchmaker to Oya to ask for Toyoo as her son-in-law. Oya was also keen, and things went smoothly, and they were soon engaged. So, when someone was sent to the capital, the court lady, Tomiko, returned with joy. Having become accustomed to serving the imperial court for many years, her behavior and appearance were much more elegant and refined than those of other women. When Toyoo became a son-in-law in the Shiba house, he found his wife Tomiko to be a wonderful beauty and was satisfied with everything. But he could not help but remember a little about the time when the incarnation of the snake, Orochi, had fallen in love with him. There was nothing particularly worth writing about the wedding night, so I will skip it. It was the second night. Toyoo was in high spirits and turned to Tomiko, saying, "You have lived in the imperial court for many years, so you must hate a country bumpkin like me. In the imperial palace, you must have had a fling with some middle captain or some prime minister. There's no point in saying that now, but I'm sure you find me distasteful." When he began to joke around, Tomiko immediately raised her head and said, "You have forgotten the deep friendship you had from before and have chosen to favor this unremarkable woman with no particular merits. You say you hate me, but it's you I hate." Although his appearance had changed, his voice was still that of a real girl. Hearing this, Toyoo was so shocked that his hair stood on end and fear ran throughout his body. He was stunned and confused, not knowing what to do, but the woman gave him a mysterious smile and said, "My lord, you have such a strange expression on your face. Our pact is deeper than the sea, higher than the mountains, and we firmly promise to never change. Even if you have quickly forgotten that, there is a destiny that has determined that this will happen from a previous life. I will meet you again, but if you listen to what a complete stranger says and try to forcefully distance yourself from me, I will resent you and get revenge. No matter how high the mountains of the Kishu region are, I will make your blood flow from the peaks to the valleys. Do not waste your precious life." Hearing this, Toyoo trembled with fear and almost fainted, fearing that he would be killed at any moment. Then, from behind the folding screen, it was Moroya who appeared, saying, "Why are you being so rude to my master? Isn't this a happy marriage?" Seeing this, Toyoo became frightened again, closed his eyes, and collapsed face down. Manako and Moroya took turns saying various things to soothe him and to scare him, but Toyoo simply remained unconscious, and the night passed. Thus, morning came, and Toyoo finally managed to slip out of the bedroom and said to his father-in-law, "Shoji, such terrible things have happened. How can we avoid these misfortunes? Please tell me your advice." However, he hushed his voice, lest he be heard from behind. Shoji and his wife turned pale and panicked, lamenting and mourning. "What should we do?" "I know. There is a monk from Karama Temple in the capital who makes a pilgrimage to the Kumano Sanzan every year, and since yesterday he has been staying at a temple on the mountain opposite. He is a monk with great powers of exorcism, and is said to be skilled at praying to dispel evils such as epidemics, spirits, and rice bugs, and everyone in this village respects him. Let's ask this monk to pray for us." He quickly ordered a servant to go, and, after a while, he arrived. So when the priest explained the situation, he stood tall and said, "It's not that difficult to get rid of that snake nature. Well, don't worry," with such ease that the people felt relieved to hear it. The priest first went to get some yew, mixed a liquid medicine with it, filled a small bottle with it, and took it to his bedroom. Then, mocking the family who tried to hide in fear, he said, "Come on in, old people and children. I'll catch this snake right away and show you," and advanced to the entrance of the room. As soon as the priest opened the door to the room, the snake popped out its head as if it had been waiting for him, and came toward the priest. Just how big do you think that head was? It was truly terrifying, filling the doorway of the room, whiter than snow and shining brightly, with eyes like mirrors and horns like dead wood. It opened its mouth, which was about 1 meter wide, and stuck out its bright red tongue, as if it would swallow the priest in one bite. "Woa!" the priest cried, threw the small bottle he had been holding onto the ground, collapsed, rolled around, and crawled away, finally managing to escape. He turned to his family and said, "Oh, how frightening. It is not a spirit possessed by a spirit or a ghost, but a cursed deity, so how can a fool like me subdue it? If I didn't have these arms and legs, I would surely have been killed before losing consciousness." People tried to help it up, but by that time its face, hands and feet had already turned black and red, and its skin was as hot as if it was holding its hands over a campfire. It seemed that it had been poisoned by the snake, and even after it had regained breath, it could only look around in circles and tried to speak, but was unable to even speak. They tried to pour water over it, but it eventually died. The people who saw this felt even more lifeless and cried in a panic. Toyoo calmed down a little and said, "Since even such a wonderful monk cannot subdue you and you continue to haunt me with such a vengeance, as long as I am alive in this world you will be tracked down and caught. It is not sincere to make people suffer for the sake of your own life. I will no longer rely on others for help. I have made up my mind. Please rest assured." He then tried to go to his bedroom again, and the people of the Shoji household tried to stop him, saying, "Have you gone mad?" But Toyoo pretended not to notice and went to his bedroom. When he quietly opened the door, the room was silent despite the commotion outside, and Tomiko Meijo and her maid Moroya were sitting opposite each other. As Toyoo entered, Tomiko said in a very seductive voice, "What grudge has made you ask someone else to capture me? If you continue to treat me with hostility, I will bring suffering not only upon you, but upon all the people of this village. Don't just be happy about my chastity and give rise to a false and unfaithful mind." But Toyoo was put off by this as well. Toyoo said, as the common proverb says, man has no intention of killing a tiger, but the tiger has the desire to hurt him. You have a different heart from humans, and you have followed me around. You have even caused me a lot of trouble in the past. On top of that, you have spoken of such horrible retaliation in response to the simplest of comments. It's really disgusting. However, your feelings for me are no different from those of the average person. So it would be a shame for you to stay in this house any longer and cause distress to the people there. Anyway, I want you to save Tomiko's life. And then you can take me wherever you want." The woman looked extremely happy and shook her head repeatedly as she nodded. Toyoo left the room again and returned to Shoji, saying, "I am possessed by this pathetic demon, and it is extremely unwilling for me to stay here any longer and cause suffering to everyone here. If you could divorce me immediately and remove me from this house, I believe my daughter's life would be safe." However, Shoji would not listen, saying, "Though I am quite skilled in martial arts, if I remain in such a pathetic state, the people of the Oya household will be displeased with me. I wonder what he must be thinking, and I feel ashamed. I will think carefully about what to do in the future. There is a monk named Hokai at Dajaji Temple in Komatsubara who performs prayers for me. I have heard that he is now old and rarely leaves his room, but if it is for my sake, he will never abandon me, no matter what. I will be there, so please wait for me," he said, and mounted his horse and hurried off. It was quite a journey, and I arrived at Dajaji Temple in the middle of the night. Upon receiving the visit of the Shoji, the old priest came out of his bedroom to meet him, and upon hearing the story from the Shoji himself, he said, "That must be very troubling for you. I am now old and worn, and prayers are unlikely to be of any effect, but even so, I cannot just sit back and ignore this disaster that has befallen your house. Well, you go home first. I will come back shortly." He took out a robe that was permeated with the scent of roasted mustard, handed it to the Shoji, and gave him kind instructions. "Use your skill to trick the demonic powers, pull it over your head, and push it down with all your might. If you relax, it will probably run away. Pray to Buddha in your heart, and do it firmly and with all your might." Delighted, the Shoji galloped back home. As soon as he got home, he secretly called Toyoo and told him what the priest had told him, and handed him the robe, saying, "Please do this well." Toyoo hid it in his bosom and went to the bedroom, where he said to the woman, "Shoji has finally given us his leave. Come on, let's go out." Hearing this, the woman looked very happy. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Toyoo took the robe from his bosom and quickly put it over the woman's head, holding it down with all his might. The woman cried out, "Oh, it hurts. Why are you so cold-hearted? Please let me go," but he held her down with all the more force. Soon the palanquin carrying priest Hokai entered the house. With the help of the people of the Shoji family, the monk came to the room, chanted a spell under his breath, and while praying, He pushed Toyoo aside and removed the robe that was holding her down. Looking underneath, he saw Tomiko lying face down and without a trace of her body, and a white snake about 1 meter long coiled around it, not moving at all. The old monk caught it and placed it in the iron bowl that his disciple had offered. As he continued to pray, a small snake about 30 centimeters long crawled out from behind the folding screen, which he caught and placed in the iron bowl as well. He then wrapped the iron bowl tightly in the robe, sealed the snake away with his magical powers, and climbed back into the palanquin. The people of the family clasped their hands, shed tears of gratitude, bowed their heads respectfully, and saw him off. When the priest returned to Dajaji, he had a deep dig dug in front of the main hall and the iron bowl buried there, strictly forbidding the snake from ever venturing out into the world. It is said that the snake mound still remains at Dajaji to this day. Meanwhile, Shoji's daughter Tomiko fell ill as a result of this and eventually died. It is said that Toyoo survived unharmed.